Silver has been effectively used for centuries because of its natural antibacterial properties. Today, it's used in thousands of consumer products, including medical products, fabrics, and supplements. Because silver has the highest electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity, and reflectivity of any metal, it is very effective as a colloid, silver suspended in water. Common colloidal or ionic silvers contain positively charged silver ions that have the ability to steal an electron from the bacteria's cell membrane. If enough electrons are stripped, the cell membrane ruptures and the bacteria can no longer function. Although ionic silver is useful, this one-to-one electron exchange requires multiple applications or a high concentration of silver to achieve the effectiveness needed. Conversely, Silver Sol's unique nano-silver particle has a patented silver oxide coating, Ag404, that can steal thousands of electrons per particle, resulting in a continuous or catalytic action. In addition, we supercharge the nanoparticle with the same frequency as ultraviolet light, 890 to 910 terahertz. Although this UV light frequency is harmless to human tissue, it is highly destructive to bacteria, fungus, and yeast, and doesn't require direct physical contact in order to be effective. This powerful combination of silver oxide coating and resonant UV frequency multiplies the effectivity exponentially. In fact, Silver Sol at a concentration of 10 ppm is up to 3 times more effective than traditional colloidal, silver hydrosols, or ionic silver products containing up to 3,000 ppm. Best of all, Silver Sol is backed by 420 independent third-party studies, including 32 safety studies and 5 human ingestion studies. Unlike other silver products, Silver Sol won't harm probiotics, isn't metabolized in the body, and is safely excreted with no residual buildup. This means Silver Sol products can be safely used every day without the drawbacks of traditional silver colloids, hydrosols, and ionic silver products. Make Silver Sol your natural, safe, and effective solution.
Silver Sol. Remember that word, Silver Sol. Powerful. Belonging to helping increase the immunity of our bodies. And if we can increase the immunity, then we have the opportunity to overcome situations in our life that are coming in and making a problem for us to do. And so Silver Sol is the first line of defense. It is actually able to do the things that you saw in that whiteboard presentation. That product can be purchased at Remedies Naturally. The address is still on the board right there for you to be able to get it. And look it up. Check out Patent Office. Check out the patent that has the Silver Sol in it. And you will see what it's supposed to do, what it has been able to do, and what the patent says it can do. That's what's so neat about Silver Sol. And yeah, there were some negative things about colloidal silver in the past, but that's because it was toxic to the body when you get too much of things that the body can't ingest or digest. The neat thing about Silver Sol, when you put it in the mouth and when it ends up going through the urinary system, it's powerful. It is able to not contaminate. It is able to heal, to cleanse, and detoxify. So Silver Sol, check it out at Remedies Naturally. It is the product that you and I need to have on hand as a first line of defense when it comes to natural health and the ability for the body to be able to do that. So one of the things that I've been able to share, and that is that what we need to say, in other words, I'm talking about myself as well as you, what is important to do is to make sure, absolutely make sure, we are taking care and building our immune system within our body. And a lot of these things that were passed on were passed on a long time. There is a introduction to Granny in Granny's Remedies, a book written back in 1965. So it's been around for a while. And I'm going to share with you some of the things about Granny. This could be anybody's Granny. If you and I would just stop for a moment and realize what the person had to be able to have to work with building the immune system and staying well. Did not have all the sophisticated equipment, scientific knowledge, and things that we have at this point in time. But I am also aware that some of the remedies, and probably about 60% of, and some people say even more, of what is made as a remedy for a particular situation, and when it becomes into a drug, they got the foundation of that drug from God's plants. And so we're going to talk about Granny, going to talk about some of the things that she was able to have at her disposal when people knocked on her door or called her to come to their home, and they needed Granny's assistance in helping stay well. Introduction would be like Granny would, an individual, she had no medical experience or training in accepted sense, yet for miles around people had more faith in her treatment than in the conventional skills of the local doctor, which, you know, with his top hat. So the doctor had an image, had a top hat, had a wooden scaffold, had a stethoscope, and that black bag. That black bag amazed me. What is the mystery in there? And I'll tell you what you can do. If you happen to go down to Moorhead and you get to go to Fort Macon down there, check it out, because they have and actually one of those black bags and it has in there what the doctor had to offer when he was on staff with the people in the at Fort Macon there, to make sure that they were treated for their wounds, and what kind of saw cut the bones, and when you had to have things amputated, what they used, what was there. You also have something even closer in the Doctor's Museum, you know, Nash County. So there is stuff, and I think you shouldn't kick it all to the curb, but take and use it for what it has to offer us in order to get what we need to be able to help stay well and build our immune system. Her treatment then is the conventional skill of the local doctor with his top hat, wooden stethoscope, and mysterious little black bag. Even in those, I guess you would say now, even as we live in, let's call it the atomic age, this age of antibiotics, medical miracles, and millions still firmly believe in old-fashioned remedies their grandmothers, great-grandmothers used to do and have available. And they made them, they used them. And so, I mean, foolishness? Probably not. So many of today's miracle cures are based on knowledge gathered from folklore healing, on remedies handed down from mother to daughter. And, you know, one of the things that's really close to my heart is the Appalachian Mountains and the people there, and how they took care of themselves and what was available, what root they used, what remedy they used. Yeah, I'm saying use some common sense, but I'm also saying we shouldn't kick it to the curb when we get stuck in not being able to have something and all of a sudden there's a Medicine Man show. And actually the Medicine Man show, when it was in the Midwestern days, that what was there in that bottle of remedy was echinacea. They had learned it from the local Indians. And see, the other thing is, when we're on the East Coast here, and all the Indians, when there was the Cheyenne, there were people in the Appalachian Mountains that worked with the people that lived there in both ways, and helping to be able to have the confidence and know-how to be able to use a remedy. Our grandmothers mixed. They had a mixture of stuff. But I think the biggest thing they had was common sense. And they had good medicine, was often more effective than a doctor in the house. A fact, frankly, admitted even by distinguished members of the medical profession. And start paying attention. It was there, it's still there. And we need to make sure in this time and age of so many epidemics, pandemics, and then there's natural stuff, and then when that tries to be brought out in the open and shared, it's kicked to the curb. Let's make sure we don't leave God out of the equation, because he's the one that made the body. He made the plants first, then he made us. It's all important to be able to check it out. The collection of things that are based on wisdom, experience of one grandmother who lives in Wales, and that's what we're going to be talking about her today. Villagers held her in the all respect. Some even whispered that she was a white witch. And it's amazing to me that common sense sometimes was destroyed by someone claiming that person was a witch and a white witch. Whatever the truth of the claim, and she never troubled to deny it. In other words, the woman had a gift, and that gift was to help keep God's children alive and overcoming. As soon as a crisis hit her village, whether childbirth, measles, mumps, or some ailment, even the livestock, within minutes, someone would be knocking on her back door. And what would they be doing? Looking for the lady that could help. The origin of her remedies, which she had been collecting through her long life, is obscure. Some were undoubtedly handed down from her Romy forebears. Others might have been an accessory dated back to the Druids. After she died at the age of 95, it was found that she had written down her own pharmakeia and folk medicine in a collection of school exercise books. This book is a selection of Granny's remedies. and that's what has happened. We have lost so much of the power and the information that was passed on from one to another. And thank goodness that the Granny in Wales had the opportunity to do for the next generations information that was beneficial. So, Granny, I want to introduce you to her, okay? Around the turn of the century, when life was a great deal simpler, and this now, I am telling the story from the author of the book, My Thomas. So when I say my grandmother, I am referring to my Thomas's grandmother. When life was a great deal simpler, my grandmother lived in a gray stone cottage in a village on the borders of England and Wales. It was a pleasant dwelling place, which had stood in its overgrowth garden and roses, hollyhock, sweet peas, lavender, gooseberry bushes, fruit trees, and this has been going on for her since the Queen Elizabeth, and she passed away at 95. The 4 small bedrooms had sloping floors, low ceilings, and little leaded windows that looked across pastures and winding river to the blue Welsh hills. It was a kitchen with an enormous black leaded range and a mass of simmering copper pans, and a sink where the water came out of a hand pump. And heart and center of all, there was a big, sunny sitting room, which seemed to the eyes of the small girl at least the most fascinating treasure house on earth. On the wall above the fireplace hung a bell-mouthed blundersome with so much legend that my grandfather had once driven off a highwayman. White china dogs staring glassily from the end of the chimney-piece, flanked on porcelain mandarin, and just touches of things that were unique and really cool. On the window ledge, between the old-fashioned potted plants, there was the great spiky seashells brought in some clipper ships from the South Seas. When they put them in her ear, she could hear the distant roaring of the waves. How many of you remember that? How many get the opportunity? That'll take care of itself. There we go. There was a glass-fronted cabinet filled with Dresden shepherdess dress, eggshell coffee cups, ivory Buddhas and elephants, and a globe which has shaken, produced a most satisfying snowstorm around a miniature gondola inside of it. Just kind of giving you a picture of something that's ancient, something that is beautiful, something that is powerful, something that is important, and it's history. We can't wipe out history. History is important. History is powerful. We need it to be able to go on to the next decade of time and space and learn from what was not correct and what should be changed, what should be something that we realize that we know we won't make the same mistakes again. That's what it's all about. That's what history is important. And it says, this was the domain of my grandmother, a stately old lady dressed invariably in black silk gown with a shawl around her shoulders, scrumptiously laundered white lace cap atop her gray hair. You know, this is where things were happening. This is where the power of the granny's remedies, where we learn from them what can be done. It says she was a small, slender woman, very graceful, unashamedly proud of her small hands and feet. Her dark eyes and warm brown skin, coupled with the high cheekbones, betrayed with stains of Romney in her blood. Except for a touch of rheumatism in her hands, she was perfectly fit, and active and would accept no other, either with housework or with gardening. Or she got out there and got it done. Yeah, there was some aches and pains in there. And she lived alone. She got the job done. Her husband, my grandfather, had been lost with his ship for many years before I was born. She had reared her children and seen them settle in their own homes. Now perfectly content and just basically independent individual, she bruised herself with the life of the village and the surrounding farms. She had something to offer. She had something to give. Granny and Granny's way of learning and helping, and thought it was just so important to give back to the community. When she went out, if the weather was not too inclement, she wore what I called a dolman and a perfectly little bonnet, and osprey plum and broad purple ribbons tied around her chin. In winter, she affected a close-fitting red squirrel jacket with a kind of mutton chop sleeve and red woolen buttons. Almost invariably, she carried a long, slender umbrella, the handle fashioned like a bird's head. And I saw, she said, never saw I open that umbrella. Oh, even when the rain was teeming down. That's kind of crazy. Granny got an umbrella and she just takes it along, doesn't even open up when the rain comes down. The villagers held her in utmost all respect. Some even whispered that she was a white witch. Whatever the truth of that claim, and she never troubled to deny it, it was soon a crisis hit the village, whether it was childbirth, death, mumps, measles, or some ailment among the livestock. Within minutes, somebody would be knocking on her back door. She had, of course, no medical training. In the accepted sense, yet for miles around, people had very much more faith in her treatment than in the conventional, skillful local doctor with his top hat, wooden stethoscope, and mistress little black bag. Granny's remedies worked, they said. The origin of these remedies, which my grandmother had been collecting through her long life, is obscure. Some undoubtedly were handed down from her Romy forebears, and others might well have been ancestry dating back to the Druids. Some were so Spartan, even terrifying, that very thought of undergoing treatment might have produced an instant cure. And I'll tell you, as a man or woman thinketh in their heart, so are they. And I think we need to get more into understanding the power that is within us. And we have the ability to move forward and to be able to heal thyself. And that's why I love sharing this information with you guys. To cure whooping cough, my grandmother said, some people recommend that you skin a mouse, roast it, and give it to sufferer to eat. If the patient was finicky, they suggested treatment to disguise by baking the mouse in a patty. Fortunately, Granny didn't favor this remedy, but she told me that a common method of getting rid of tapeworm was to make a patient fast for 3 or 4 days. Then in the same room, a large steak would be cooked and held in front of the patient's mouth. wherever the ravenous tapeworm would shoot out of the patient's mouth, eager to get to the meat. Less drastic was her treatment for AGUE. First, she said she must cut an apple into 3 parts, on which you must write Des Pater, Des Filmer, and Des Sanctus Spiritus. The patient must fast for 3 days. At midnight on the first day, must eat the section inscribed Des Pater, and on the midnight on the second day, the piece Deser Philemus, and at midnight on the third day, hold on, I lost it, don't go away, ate the remaining portion, and the fever would leave him immediately. Foolish? Well, the basic management for these fevers today is a starvation diet, which was just what my grandmother ordered. And no doubt the mystic words helped to cure along. In these atomic age, thousands of people believe firmly that whooping cough can be cured by taking the sufferer on a trip in an aeroplane. In that very credible, then, the mouse story with Granny. My grandmother died quietly and without fuss at the age of 95. After her death, I found in the old college a collection of school exercise books, each filled with her careful, copper-plated handwritten, though the years she had patiently compiled a pharmacopoeia of folk medicine for the guidance of those who should come after her. The book is Sanction of Remedies and for Granny, but it's also a memorial to a very good, great old lady who's like she never been seen before. I will go ahead and talk to you a little bit more about Granny's medicine chest, and it's kind of interesting, and it's just a matter of helping to understand some of the things that were there, what they were for, and what she did to help people overcome situations and things. Granny's Dispensary was a large Georgian mahogany press which stood in its own alcove in the sitting room. Its contents might not have won a vote of confidence from any medical association, but they were undoubtedly comprehensive, and these, according to a list in her own handwritten, were the medicines that she essentially had available in her home. It was 3 thermometers, had some Condy's fluid and carbolic fluid, lint, old rags, and a gutta percha tissue, carron oil, linseed oil, flour of mustard, mustard leaves, flannel for compression, bandages, a spatula, castor oil, quinine, chlorodyne, carbon smoke ball, sal volatile, camphorated spirits, hazeline, ammonia, an India rubber hot water bottle, an enema, an element embrocation, syringes, a feeding cup, medicine glass with measurements, cotton wool, arnica liniment, and at the bottom of this list was the note, medicine strains. And Arnica montana is used greatly today in helping to get rid of pain. Medicine stains, or strands, S-T-A-I-N-S. Medicine strands may be removed from silver spoon by rubbing them with a rag dipped in diluted sulfur acid and wash it off with soap suds. Domestic measures. Domestic measures can be found approximately gauged this way. A wine glass full, ordinary size, equal 1 fluid ounce and a half. 2 tablespoons equals 1 fluid ounce. 1 tablespoon equal a half fluid ounce. 1 dessert spoon equal 2 drams, and 1 teaspoon 1 dram. These measurements apply solely to fluids, never to solids. A tablespoon of these solids as powders would weigh 2 to 3 ounces, some granulated, some 1 ounce. Somewhat ahead of her time in this respect, at least, Granny firmly believed in dealing with germs before they were time to get into human system, as the following shows. And what did she do? Disinfectant. She dissolved together in a gallon of water 4 ounces of zinc sulfate and 2 ounces of common salt for disinfectant. To disinfect the rooms, close to the room window and doors and chimney to exclude outer air, break roll sulfur into small pieces, place a small metal dish, and set this pair of tongs over a metal pot in which there is a water, or over a large box of sand to avoid danger of fire. Light it with a few hot coals in your methylated spirit. Pour some sulfur. Leave the room and shut the door. A 1.5 pounds of sulfur is sufficient for 1,000 cubic feet of space. Keep the room closed 3 hours, and after the burning has ceased, these air well for 6 hours. Clothing and bedding hung on line and left in the room. Similarly, she was conceived that flies, bugs, and such varmints had much to do with the spreading of disease, and her own drastic method of treating them. To make an ant trap, here's what Granny did. Soak a sponge in water, wire it near dry, or squeeze it out, sprinkle some sugar, and lay on a plate by the ant's house. As soon as it is full, purge it into hot boiling water. Get rid of the ants. Crickets. Put cucumber peels on the floor at night near the hiding places. This will destroy them. This will also destroy beetles. So these are just some of the things that Granny had. Let me just talk about some things that we use today. Epsom salt. Adult dose is 1/2 ounce. Taken first time in the morning with a warm drink afterwards. An excellent saline purgative. Mustard is, you've got some English mustard handy. You have always got an effective emit. A teaspoonful in troublesome or warm water generally produces vomiting. So you can help if you need to get rid of it. You can use a little mustard and warm water and help get rid of, have a purgative. So those are some of the things you may need to throw up a little bit. Insect. And then gems from Granny's scrapbook #1 from Health Contentment Springs. The best physicians are Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, and Dr. Merryman. A handful of good life is better than a bushel of good learning. He that would have a clear head must have a clean stomach. By examining the tongue of a patient's physicians, find out the diseases of the body, and the philosophers the disease of the mind. Kind of interesting, huh? It says you should not touch your eye, but with your elbow. The man who spends his energies deliberately has the most inexhaustible bank to draw upon and will draw the longest. So, talks about got a fish bone stuck in your throat, Granny's herbal, tree eaters, and that goes back to George Washington's time. And the other thing is kind of cool. Granny said, more die by food than famine. And you think about what's going on with our diet and so forth, more people are dying by food than famine. Diet cures more than the lancet. Feeding sparingly and defy the physician. Cheese is a previous F. If digested anything but itself. We seldom repent for having eaten too little. We seldom repent for eating too little. Better lose a supper than gain 100 positions. Many a pie has cost an industrious husband a 20-pound note in doctor bills, and many a human life has paid for an apple dumpling. So, just kind of good common sense stuff. And it's kind of cool. Eat a bit before you drink. Be temperate in all things. Eat at pleasure, drink by measure. He that goes to bed thirsty rises healthy. Temperance is reason girdled and passion bridled. The intemperate die young and rarely enjoy old age. Against disease, here the strong fence is the defense, virtue, assistance. All sick people want to get well, but not always in the best way, said a wealthy man. Doctors strike and the roof of the disease, and squish went the decanter under the faithful physician's cane. All right. Let's see. Let me look on through here. Whole lot of things. I want to. I've done this before, and I'm just going to do it again. And I want to make sure we get the whiteboard experience in again with the silver. But the healing herb. The herbs which Granny used in her remedies and recipes, and a great number of others too, are available today. For the readers interested in information, here's a list of the herbs samples obtained from good herbalists. And when this book was written back in 1969, I think it was, hold one second. I want to make sure I tell it when it was right. And this was by Mai Thomas, granddaughter of Granny there. Okay. It's the MCM 1900, L's 50, X's 10, 5. So 1965, this book was Granny. And these are some of the herbs that were available. A lot of these are, some of them have questionable ability, so we leave them alone and don't have them available. But the agrami for coughs, simple diarrhea and relaxed bowel, angelica for kidneys and to ease perspiration, ash leaves for gouty, arthritis, and rheumatism conditions, blackberry, an excellent tonic, useful in cases of diarrhea, bladderwrack for kidneys and in bath for rheumatism. Let's see here. Burdock for blood purifying, seeds used for kidney infection, wild carrots for cough and bronchitis, cleavers for gravel and other urinary disorders, also as a tonic, coltsfoot for coughs and in herbal smoking mixtures, comfrey for chest comforts and reducing inflammatory swelling, and comfrey is one of those that they ask you not to ingest. Dandelion with other herbs used for kidneys and liver, also as a laxative and tonic, roots as a substitute for coffee. Dandelion root has been roasted, and that was considered depression coffee, and people being able to do that. Horehound, I love that. I always love to get that little horehound candy for coughs, colds, chest complaints as a tonic, and for making horehound ale. So in other words, you can actually make a drink out of the horehound, and people make it as a ale. Horsetail for graveling for the kidneys. Hyssop, the coughs, colds, and chest pain. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be as white as snow. Irish moss, and for chest, bronchial afflictions, and for bladder and kidneys. Lily of the valley, cardiac tonic. And marshmallow for coughs and bronchitis, for the bladder complaints. Root is used for reducing inflammation. This is not one that used, but this is one that mistletoe for nervous complaints and nervous disorders, because you're not supposed to eat that little ball on there. It's kind of poison for the mistletoe. Mullein for coughs and bronchitis. Nettle, the thing called stinging nettle, because it has, if you on the leaves themselves, it will actually sting a little bit. Very rich in chlorophyll. And if any of you know me well, you know chlorophyll is one of the things that I believe in strongly to help cleanse and detoxify. And the reason I believe that is because you have your plants, the green in them is their blood system, and helps to detoxify and to cleanse. So I like my chlorophyll, and don't really use it from nettle. Most of what I get it from is where we have it Remedies that's naturally available to you, alfalfa, and check it out. Use of nettle, parsley, pirate for gravel root and complaints. pennyroyal, peppermint. We all are familiar with peppermint in some form or manner. But peppermint also has to get rid of flatulence, which is gas, stomach sickness, and vomiting, and it also is a cordial. Peppermint, people also use it to run mice off in the house. Raspberry, chiefly used as an aid during pregnancy. In the studies of raspberry, I consider it a woman's tonic, and women of all ages are able to use the raspberry and get benefit from it in a positive way. There is sage. This one's talking about red sage as a gargle for relaxing throat, laryngitis, and it's ulcerated mouth and throat. Rosemary for headaches, nerve, stomach, as a stimulant for hair, and you'll find out a lot of times in sage is another one for that as well for hair. Skullcap, nervous disorders. Senna leaves. Now, if you can't get moving, try some senna tea. And usually prepare with a little ginger to modify griping effects. And that's one of the things that people gripe about is the griping of senna. So put a little ginger with it to help with that. If you want something that's a little bit more mild, Cascara sagrada is also a laxative, but not as harsh as senna can be. Let's see. Violet, antiseptic expectorant. Yarrow for promoting perspiration for colds and fever. Yarrow tea has been used to be able to help people to sweat, to break a fever, and that's been successfully used. Cherry, used with other herbs for catarrhal effects. Cherry, black cherry, helps to get rid of aches and pains. Slippery elm, used for the most valuable healing and nutritive properties as gruel in a food for stomach inflammation. So flowers, chamomile, clover, elder, hops, lime, chamomile, very much so, and it's generally for relaxation, mellowing you out. Used in hysterical and nervous condition, also as a digestive tonic and helping the body to get back. Red clover used for bronchicles and cough and whooping cough. Hops for sleeplessness and nerves. What do you think about hops? You think about beer. So what is one of the things that beer does? Does it seem like because there's hops for sleeplessness and nerves, I have people tell me that they can drink one beer and they gone. They just fall asleep. Also with other herbs for indigestion, debility, and worms. So that's the hops. Lime for headache, soothe and nervous for indigestion. Celery, with celery seed, for rheumatism. Fennel, used for stomach medicine with other herbs. Very, very mellowing out. Used for kidneys, that would be for juniper berries. And mustard seed is an emetic, used as a poultice for acute local pains and bronchitis. The oil used in muscar ointment. And nettle, used as chest Cinepod, we're back to laxative, and roots, the different roots that can be used. And ginger for colds and flatulence, gum resin, herb simples, and then nice little index on different stuff. But I want to mention, please take the time, listen carefully to what has to be said about Silver Soul and what it has to offer. Okay? Lee, go ahead and play that one. Then we may have a minute to say goodbye to everybody after Silver Soul. Pay close attention, folks. This is powerful, powerful stuff.
Effectively used for centuries because of its natural antibacterial properties. Today, it's used in thousands of consumer products, including medical products, fabrics, and supplements. Because silver has the highest electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity, and reflectivity of any metal, it is very effective as a colloid, silver suspended in water. Common colloidal or ionic silvers contain positively charged silver ions that have the ability to steal an electron from the bacteria's cell membrane. If enough electrons are stripped, the cell membrane ruptures and the bacteria can no longer function. Although ionic silver is useful, this one-to-one electron exchange requires multiple applications or a high concentration of silver to achieve the effectiveness needed. Conversely, Silver Soul's unique nano-silver particle has a patented silver oxide coating, Ag404, that can steal thousands of electrons per particle, resulting in a continuous or catalytic action. In addition, we supercharge the nanoparticle with the same frequency as ultraviolet light, 890 to 910 terahertz. Although this UV light frequency is harmless to human tissue, it is highly destructive to bacteria, fungus, and yeast, and doesn't require direct physical contact in order to be effective. This powerful combination of silver oxide coating and resonant UV frequency multiplies the effectivity exponentially. In fact, Silver Soul at a concentration of 10 ppm is up to 3 times more effective than traditional colloidal, silver hydrosols, or ionic silver products containing up to 3,000 ppm. Best of all, Silver Soul is backed by 420 independent third-party studies, including 32 safety studies and 5 human ingestion studies. Unlike other silver products, Silver Soul won't harm probiotics, isn't metabolized in the body, and is safely excreted with no residual buildup. This means Silver Soul products can be safely used every day without the drawbacks of traditional silver colloids, hydrosols, and ionic silver products. Make Silver Soul your natural, safe, and effective solution.